There's no question that this is the most notorious, violent, most reprehensible drug trafficking organization that this community throughout West Tennessee, including Memphis, has seen.
Craig Pettis, one of the largest suppliers of cocaine and marijuana to Memphis and other cities across the country. He shipped millions of dollars worth of drugs from Mexico for years.
We as a whole in the community have been victimized by this organization.
The DA, Memphis Police, the U.S. District Attorney's Office, and countless of other law enforcement agencies worked on bringing down the drug lord for more than a decade. Pettis pleaded guilty in Memphis in 2009. 40 people who work for Pettis have already been sentenced. Today, the drug lord got his day in federal court.
On this episode of A Crime and Tell, we're gonna talk about Craig Pettis and the Memphis streets he came from. We'll also talk about his upbringing, like his high school days. We're gonna talk about when he got into all the hustling and what he did. Pettis was a hustler, man. Pettis came out like from the bottom, as everybody else normally do, starting from the bottom. No sense of direction, nothing to do, but he made something out of nothing. I mean, yeah, he did it illegally, and he did it harmfully. Some people feel like they ain't gotta take that route. Most people do feel like they gotta take that route. But today on Crime and Tell, we're gonna jump off into Craig Pettis and all the things that he got into when he was out here on the street. Standing only 5 feet tall, weighing 130 pounds, Craig Pettis, Lil C, or Lil Dude, was born on December 11, 1976, in Memphis, Tennessee, to Evergene Pettis. He grew up with his sister in the Riverside neighborhood on the south, in a small brick house his mother purchased for $17,000. His mom earned a little over $15,000 annually as a foster parent and through work with the Board of Education in the Shelby County School District. When inclined on doing an interview, she stated, "I'm not doing nothing on my son, and I'm not talking about anything either." Little to no information on his father is published. However, his half-brother Paul Beauregard, also known as DJ Paul from 3-6 Mafia, both share the same dad. He was an entrepreneur, you know, whether it's good or bad. He's an entrepreneur. He knew what he wanted, and he went after it, where neighbors were called. Craig Pettis' educational background was marked by early troubles and eventually made him drop out from school, not because he wasn't equipped, but just by the harsh reality that the South Memphis brung. They eat a starved mentality, you know. His first arrest came in 1992, at the age of 15 at Carver High School, for carrying a sawed-off shotgun, a weapon he purchased to intimidate a bully who had stolen one of his coats. He had accidentally discharged the gun inside his own home and was actually the person who called the police to tell on himself. Pettis had dropped out of school by the time he was 16 and was arrested on 3 more occasions, twice for selling crack during the summer of 1993 and once during the winter for attempted murder. Pettis and some of his partners had approached a robber named Eric Cole and started shooting. With Cole surviving after being shot in the back, authorities recommended trying Pettis as an adult, a crime that is punishable by a sentence of up to 20 years, but the adult court declined and sent the case back to juvenile. Records do not show what the punishment was. However, in October of that year, between the second and the third arrest, psychologist Robert Perr had evaluated Pettis. He described the young man as polite, rebellious, a lack of impulsive control, and resentment of authority, but still no sense of direction. At the age of 17, he got entangled with a well-known gang called the GDs, also known as the Gangster's Disciples, which would only broaden his life with illegal activities. While working under a local drug dealer, he was ordered to retrieve $500,000 from a stash spot in the car the feds impounded. The local drug dealer was supposed to pay them a cut for retrieving the money, but Pettis and his cousin Big Wayne and a couple other people double-crossed the dealer, because he wasn't known to be violent, and he knew he wouldn't retaliate. So they split the money. Pettis kept $50,000, and he used it to remove the big tree in his mama's front yard. And he bought his first Cadillac, and he invested in wholesale quantities of drugs. And he's finna turn up. And you could tell he came from a good upbringing. You know, a single-parent home. But his mama was making like 17 to 18 grand a year. No dad. I mean, like in the early 80s, I mean, that was good. That was pretty cool. Single parent, 2 kids. It seemed like she bust her ass just to make sure everything met up right. By 1995, Pettis was 18 and making decent money. In one case, records showed that Pettis was buying 10 keys and 200 pounds of marijuana at one time, all through a middleman who worked with the Mexican cartel. But by 2000, after all the success from back and forth, Pettis was introduced to one of Mexico's biggest drug lords, Edgar Velez Villarreal, better known as the Barbie, from Corpus Christi, Texas, who ran to Mexico after a marijuana charge. He was a high-ranking leader in Mexico's Cartel, Cartel. This nickname, the Barbie, came from his American football coach at United High School. Because of his blonde hair and blue eyes, he was compared to a Ken doll. In fact, it was said that this is one of the main reasons the cartel embraced him as such. The connection was cited in law enforcement circles. It's the first time a black man was accepted by any Mexican cartel. With this more powerful association, Pettis grew his whole organization much larger and both became millionaires at an early age. Pettis had instantly got connected with the Barbie, and then you know they had to turn up. I mean, to be that close to the plug and to be that accessible to the drugs, I mean, the world is yours. He did this for an amount of time, and I feel like if he had anybody else in his corner, it would have been the Barbie. I mean, they somehow end up being like and becoming closest friends. I mean, he was the first black man to really infiltrate the cartel, like to really be so close. Not saying just like secondhand working with them, but just right there with them. That said a lot, and even the feds couldn't believe it. But with him and that connection, man, it was up. On April 4th, 2001, Pettis' girlfriend, Latasha Booker, called the police after fighting in the home of her acquaintance. When officers arrived, they searched the home and discovered 3 duffel bags of marijuana, totaling 650 pounds. Pettis and others in the homes were arrested, and his bond was set at $250,000, an amount Pettis easily paid. Records show charges were eventually dropped for unknown reasons. During the summer of 2002, in the Memphis suburb of Bartlett, officers discovered 84 pounds of cocaine with a street value of nearly $1 million hidden in the attic of a home linked to the organization. This discovery led to the indictment of Pettis. In November that same year, special agents from the DEA correctly summarized that Pettis and his associates had become the prominent suppliers of marijuana and cocaine in Memphis. In response to the indictment, Pettis fled to Mexico. There he would start a whole new life. And each time Mexican authorities closed in on Pettis, corrupt officials tipped him off, including one such warning from an employee from the U.S. Embassy in Mexico, causing Pettis to move to a different city. He eventually settled in Mexico State, in Cartel, a few hours north of Mexico City. In August 2004, he was added to the U.S. Marshals 15 Most Wanted Fugitives list and featured on the television series America's Most Wanted. But it wasn't until 2007 that authorities knew Pettis was hiding south of the border. Pettis was being protected by the Barbie, where he had a private driver, a personal chef, a maid, a nanny, personal trainer, and armed guards. From there, he was still able to orchestrate homicides back in the U.S. His homeboys, the Lewis cousins, ran operations in the United States on behalf of Pettis, traveling to Mexico, arranging deliveries, buying stash houses, all while protecting Pettis' mother. Friends of Pettis noticed his desire for revenge after he fled to Mexico, inspired by the Mexican drug cartel propensity for violent redemption against rivals and informants. Having only ordered one murder before fleeing the country, Pettis coordinated the murders of 5 people while calling in orders from aboard, disguising his voice over the phone in case of a wiretapping by the feds. Even as in 2023, police still believe the death toll linked to Pettis' organization was higher than 6, but they couldn't prove it. In Mexico, he started to see that life wasn't as valuable as it was in Memphis. It was easier to get somebody took out. Pettis got too hot. If you know Memphis like I know Memphis, you will know like it's a big, small city. And by him getting that hot, finding all that work in them houses, connecting them to all that work in them houses, it was best that he shot to Mexico. In 2002, Pettis gave orders to kill his own cousin, Antonio Allen, by offering an associate, Tobias Pride, $100,000, despite Allen being a friend of Pride's for 16 years. Allen's cooperation with law enforcement was discovered when a president of a local bail bonds company told Pettis that Allen was providing police information. On April 21st, 2002, Allen opened the door to his Buick at his residence when he was ambushed by his friend Pride. He had been hiding behind a bush and approached firing 2 guns out of both hands. After dumping both murder weapons, Pride returned to the scene just to verify. In 2004, Pettis hitman Clarence Brody, nicknamed Killer, was ordered to kill Latrell Small, who had dressed as a police officer and robbed a member of Pettis' organization. Brody contacted Small under the scheme of planning a robbery together, and Small brought an accomplice. Brody met both of them in an apartment complex in Hickory Hill, jumped in the back seat of Small's car, and shot both of them in the back of the head. In 2005, Mario Stewart, 28, cooperated with police after a drug possession arrest, and even recorded a conversation with Tobias Pride, during which he confessed to the 2002 Allen murder. As Stewart continued secretly recording the conversation, Pride confessed that Pettis had ordered his death and even admitted that he had stood in Stewart's backyard one night to commit the murder, only backing down because of their friendship. In 2005, Brody was assigned to kill Stewart for $50,000. After Pride refused, Brody was driven to Stewart's suburban home that March on Callaway Hills Drive, where he waited in the garage and fatally shot Stewart with his children inside. On September 27, 2006, the naked body of Marcus Turner, 30, was dumped in a ditch along State Line Road in Olive Branch, Mississippi, just across the border from Memphis. Pettis had ordered his kidnapping and torture in search of information on Bobby Kraft, who stole 440 pounds of cocaine from the group, worth millions of dollars that Kraft was in charge of guarding. Kraft was chased by the Lewis cousins, who descended on his house, initiating a shootout, and engaged in a high-speed car chase into Arkansas, where Kraft was also hunted by Clarence Brody to no avail. The group thought Turner knew of Kraft's whereabouts and was tortured for 3 days in different houses around Memphis. Kidnappers included Brody, the Lewis cousins, Demetrius Meek Fields, Marcus Whiteboy Brandon, and Carlos Lizard Whitelow. Gang members finally believed Turner when he indicated he did not know where Kraft was hiding, but he was killed anyway before being dumped in the Mississippi River. In 2007, Mario LaShawn McNeil, 33, threatened Pettis' mother in response to the Turner homicide, so Pettis ordered his murder. On March 16, McNeil was spotted at a Divine Wings and Bar in Hickory Hill at 3279 Kirby Parkway. Martin Lewis was contacted and driven to the restaurant, entered the establishment, was told over the phone by Carlos Whitelow what McNeil was wearing, and fatally shot him. He was just on point. Like, he wasn't playing no games. He was whacking anything and everything that got in his way. I mean, now that I think about it, you can understand on what Pettis was on. Pettis was all the way in Mexico with the other boys in Memphis. So the other boys in Memphis probably felt like, he in Mexico, it ain't too much he can do. But the whole time, he's seeing the bloodthirst that's going on in Mexico, and he like, bro, ain't no way they doing it over here like this, and in Memphis, it ain't nowhere near the same. So I think he got blood hungry. Throughout the whole phase of his life, it seemed like people influenced him, and they influenced him like in the wrong ways. You know, from even the earlier days into high school, until when he got close with the Barbie. The early 2000s, from like 95 to like 2010, bro, if you was getting work in the tri-state area, like 9 out of 10, that work came from Pettis. According to one source with knowledge of the case, it all started in 2007 when a man approached Cartel officials with a bold proposal. He said he represented one of the higher cartels and wanted the right to operate in the area. In exchange, the cartel would give the authorities whatever monthly payment they wanted. They refused the offer, but kept watching the man, which led them to Pettis. Pettis' image was widely broadcast when he landed on the U.S. Marshal Service 15 Most Wanted list in 2004. The bulletin described him as a 5'9" and 140 pounds, and read, "Caution, armed and dangerous," stating that Pettis was wanted on a 45-count indictment. Judgment Day was nearing, and Pettis could feel it. He tossed out his cell phone, friend calls were being intercepted. So this time, as Mexican police and military prepared to close in on him in January 2008, no corrupt officials on the cartel payroll tipped him off, as they had in the past. Prosecutors and the task force members rushed to talk to the elusive opponent they spent years chasing. Pettis' wife, Latasha Booker, and their 5 children were still in Mexico. The 3 youngest, a 10-month-old and 4-year-old twins, were born in Mexico under aliases, so Mexican officials were refusing to let Booker bring them across the border. The task force would help if Pettis talked, and he caved in. What he revealed about his years in crime here in the board is hidden in protected court records. After Pettis was sentenced, U.S. Attorney Ed Shadden said those documents may never be unsealed, so the extent to which he aided other investigations remains unclear. In December 2009, out of the 50-count indictment, Pettis pled guilty to 19 charges, including drug trafficking, racketeering, money laundering, and orchestrating forward homicides. Like he also did in secret. I ain't never heard somebody secretly pleading guilty, but hey, I ain't never moved 440 pounds of cocaine either, so. Pettis' cooperation with the feds did not diminish his sentence, but it did inspire Judge Mays to honor a request to place Pettis in a prison near Memphis. That way, his moms and his wife and kids could visit. On August 22nd, 2013, United States District Court Judge Samuel Mays sentenced Pettis to 9 life sentences in federal prison without the possibility of parole. However, as of 2023, Pettis is now held in the U.S. Penitentiary in Arizona and has an inmate number of 825-53179. Pettis was quoted saying, "I'm sorry," at the end of the trial.